All of you know by now that I love going to conventions. I mainly go to anime conventions, and I don't really go to video game conventions because I'm not really sure what to expect. I'm not super caught up on modern games. I'm more of a retro video game kind of guy, and thankfully there is a convention that fulfilled that need. The SoCal Gaming Expo, or the Socal Retro Gaming Expo if you go by the URL, was held in the Ontario Convention Center on February 26th and the 27th. I've been coming to the Ontario Convention Center quite a bit lately. It's probably because it's pretty cheap to rent out. Speaking of cheap, this was not cheap. I had to purchase my tickets at the door because I actually missed the pre-sale by, no joke, 30 minutes. So the weekend pass was $40 at the door. Single day passes were $35 on Saturday and $25 on Sunday. The price kind of makes sense because retro game collectors have deep pockets. As someone who's never been to a video game convention, and this is a retro video game convention, I said, hey, you know what? I want to meet Pat the NES Punk and Ian. So I hopped into my car and I made the trek out to Ontario. I showed up to the Ontario Convention Center at 10 a.m. because I had to purchase my ticket at the door. Parking was $10, which isn't too bad, and surprisingly, there was not a lot of cars in the parking lot. The main lot was full, but usually by the time I get here, this is about halfway full, so it's gonna be a smaller convention for sure. Walking along a little bit, there she is, and a little up ahead, I could kind of see a semblance of a line, but not really. Here we are in line, and this is a little weird. I'm used to lines at the Ontario Convention Center being really long. I'm not gonna get used to these short lines though. After that, we hopped into a line where we could purchase our badges, and after getting our bag and badges, we are in. Now, let's talk about the convention itself. There is no map that was provided because the convention was held in a single room of the convention center, because the other room was actually being used by a karate tournament. It was pretty cool, honestly. The con was held in the main room, and there was two different panel rooms. The main hall was just vendors, plus some small exhibits as well. There was the gaming museum that had some interesting relics of the past. Here's a Nintendo 64 DD, a gun case, some prototype carts at the end, and this is what's interesting, the Panasonic GameCube. Look it up. Here's the Cheetah Men 2, Star Fox, and the Star Fox Super Weekend winning jacket. Of course, the Power Glove, it's really bad, and some NES carts with a test cartridge, and Chase the Chuck Wagon, and a game about brushing your teeth on the 2600. And one that I actually was a little stoked on was the art of Nintendo Power. So this exhibit took pages and original art that was featured in the pages of Nintendo Power on display. I was purchasing Nintendo Power in the mid-2000s, so all of this is way before my time, but it is still interesting to see the exclusive art that was drawn for Nintendo Power. Here's Super C, and what interests me the most was this Dragon Quest map. Sorry, Dragon Warrior. There was a game area which was a little underwhelming. I expected it to be something like Game Saru or like in Animanga 2019 where there was a lot of different video game consoles, but the game area was relegated to a couple TVs and some consoles, not a lot. You're not able to switch out the games, and there's no other games either. You were able to test out games and consoles in this area though, which is actually a really nice addition. Plus, there was a rack with some free TVs and monitors. Earlier in this day, this was filled. Here I am playing Halo 2 on the original Xbox, and for some reason, the game was in Spanish. Also, Pat the NES Punk was behind me, and so was Jay from the Game Chasers, and I was really nervous. Anyways, this is the area where the tournaments were being held. Here is the tournament schedule for the people who are interested, and the one standout to me is Dr. Mario Vs. on the NES. Not because I'm good at Dr. Mario or anything, I just didn't know this was a thing. Here are the trophies that people are able to win. When I got this footage, the Dr. Mario tournament has already ended, but here's the final match of NBA Jam. Damn CRTVs, I can't see anything. There was also a cosplay contest that I didn't get any footage of because I am a dummy. Shout out to the cat that dressed up as Freddy Fazbear. You terrified me. This is a really good costume. Hopefully he won. There was a lot of different things for sale, and of course I was looking for anything Sakura Wars related or Nihon Falcom related. I know, that's a tall order, but here's what I found. Here we have a shelf of different consoles for sale, and the owner was a little bummed that no one talked about the Destiny PS4. There's a rack of Famicom games that didn't really have anything good. RIP MF Doom. Here's a bunch of PS Vita games. I absolutely love my PlayStation Vita, but all of these games are extremely expensive. And yes, they had the one that was $1,500. Here's some boxed Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 games. Here's a variety of different games. Nothing really caught my eye. Now here is possibly my favorite booth. There was a booth that had nothing but Japanese import games. So here are the Super Famicom games. All of the games were priced fairly well too. Here are some boxed 64 Japanese games. And there are the loose Nintendo 64 games. They were $15 each, so if you're able to speak Japanese or read Japanese, this is perfect for you. Silent Hill 4, haven't played this in forever, but that wizardry did catch my eye. There is an English patch for it, but more importantly, holy crap, there is Trials in the Sky. Excuse me, sir, I'm trying to talk here. Trails in the Sky, Ys 1 and 2, and Ys 7 for the PSP. All three of them were above $200. Here's some more imports. There's Dirty Pair on the Famicom Disk System, but more importantly, Dragon Quest 1 in the box, extremely damaged, so we're just gonna sit that down. Here is Retro Bit showing off some of the games they put out. There is R-Type and Holy Diver for the Super Nintendo and NES. Swinging over to the other side, we have Undercover Cops and Metal Storm for as well, the Super Nintendo and the NES. They are super cool. I genuinely like Retrobit and what they are doing. Here is Leon S. Kennedy playing Duck Hunt.
The coolest fucking thing ever.
Some more Japanese games. And this did kind of catch my eye. It's a Game Boy cassette box, but it was $60, so I'm going to put it back down. And there is a GBA cable for the GameCube. Here's some uncommons and more sought after games, complete in box. But of course, this caught my eye. Brandish on the SNES. I honestly had no idea this came out in English. $200 and the box is kind of tattered. I'm going to have to pass on it. Here's a box PlayStation. But more importantly, here's a Commodore 64. Wow, I wasn't expecting to see this here. The keyboard is a mess. It feels really bad, but here's an Atari Jaguar CD, since we're on the topic of bad. Boxed video games, but more importantly, boxed and sealed Game Boys. Interesting. This one actually comes with Super Mario Land 2. Here's some N64s. Here's a clear Xbox. MetaZoo, complete in box, brand new sealed N64s as well. I wanted one. Here we have the Laker Halo Infinite Edition. Super cool. Here's what I got. Lord Monarch with the manual for the Super Famicom and some Super Famicom box cases. And I also picked up Ys 3 and Kamaitachi no Yoru, which is a landmark game in the visual novel genre. These games were $4 for $10, but I didn't really see anything that stood out to me. And now let's talk about the other half of the convention, the panels and the guests. The guests were kind of nice. Colleen not even gonna attempt to pronounce her last name. I'm sorry if you're watching. Was there, who, if you don't know, she is a legend in the voice acting scene. There were also some fairly well-known YouTubers as well. The Completionist, Pat and Ian from the Completely Unnecessary Podcast and Pat the NES Punk, the Game Chasers, Retro Rick, 8-Bit Eric, NES Complex, and a whole lot more. If you're a fan of retro video game content on YouTube, this is the con for you, which makes sense. The Game Chasers were sponsoring it. While I was playing Halo 2, which crashed on me, by the way, I probably should have mentioned that. The thing crashed on me because the disc was dirty. The only reason I knew that is because I'm able to read Spanish. Either way, it sounded like Jay from the Game Chasers was actually running the whole damn thing. He talked about setting up the booth for the vendors. He was running the line to get people checked in and all this other stuff. That is dedication. I talked to Pat for a bit. I talked to Jay for a bit as well. they were super chill. Now the panels were more or less just Q&A panels. There was no real industry panels or anything like that. I attended the 8-Bit Eric panel, the Pat the NES Punk with Ian panel, and the Game Chasers movie and Q&A session. Those were all pretty damn fun, and the Pat the NES Punk panel was super funny. I had a great time. The Game Chasers movie was not the best, but it was still pretty good in its own right. I mean, they made a whole damn indie movie. That's commendable. I left the convention around 7:30 or something like that, and I was there for a total of 9 hours, mainly because of the movie. I didn't say goodbye to the Ontario Convention Center because I knew I'd be seeing it very soon. So now let's get on with the totally unscientific grading scale that we are going to modify because this is not an anime convention. We are going to be rating it on the convention hall, the organization and back end, panels, guests, variety, and the main hall. Convention hall gets a 4. I like this place. There's plenty of parking. Plenty of parking. Don't even bother with the main lot. Go to the side lot across the street. It's $10 and there's always spots. Now that is a pro tip for everybody. The hall is decently sized, and from what I've heard, the convention chicken tenders are not that bad. But then again, it could just be people being hungry. The reason this isn't getting a 5, and it's one of the reasons that knocks every convention hall down, is the surrounding areas. There is no food anywhere. There is a car dealership if you want a new car, but you are limited if you want food. You got Jack in the Box, you got Starbucks, and you got Mr. Fry's in walking distance, but that is pretty much it. I wanted the Jack in the Box because, again, that's the only other option I got. Dude, Mr. Fry's looks good. Mr. Fry's looks really good. We'll do that next time. We'll do it next time. Organization and backend gets a 4. This convention was run really, really well. I heard no complaints, and I haven't seen any complaints on Twitter either. The staff was helpful. Purchasing and getting the badges was extremely easy. There was no program though, you had to use the website, and like I mentioned in Anime Pasadena review, that is not that great. I was a little lost to where the panels were being held, but I figured it out in a minute walking in a single direction. The convention hall was nicely evened out with the sellers and companies in the front, while the games and all the extra stuff in the back. There was a huge empty batch near the back corner that could have just been filled with something, but it's kind of fine. It's an indie convention. Now, there is room for expansion next year. We just gotta kick the karate tournament out. Panels gets a 4. All right, let me explain. As much as I like these panels, they're not for everyone. These panels are for a specific kind of person that I'm kind of not, and I will explain that a little later. I do like 8-Bit Eric. I do like the Game Chasers, the Completionists, and all that, but there really wasn't that much of a variety in the panels. There was no video game industry panel. There were YouTubers there that could talk about the YouTube and the content creation side of things, but there's no video game industry panel. That's why it gets a nod. Although the Game Chaser movie and having a Q&A segment with some big time personalities to certain corners of the internet is pretty nice. Which leads us to guests. It gets a 3. Let me explain. Please stop booing. So like I mentioned, there is a certain type of person that likes these internet personalities. Those are the people that had a childhood in the 80s. There's a lot of talk of 80s pop culture and 80s nostalgia. I did not grow up in the 80s. Most of the references, honestly, are kind of lost on me because I grew up in the 90s and my adolescent pop culture is in the late 90s and early 2000s. They like Ninja Turtles, Transformers, He-Man, Care Bears. While my generation grew up on Power Rangers, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball, Bakugan, Pokemon, a lot of Japanese imported shows, as well as Teen Titans, Samurai Jack, Ben 10, Generator Rex, and my Transformers show growing up was Transformers Animated. So let's take the Game Chasers for example. There was an episode where they were at a flea market, of course, and they were looking at toys. Those being Ninja Turtles, He-Man, and just like a bunch of other like 80s things. And in the corner of the screen, there was Chi from Chobits, some Dragon Ball figures, and a Power Ranger Samurai toy. That is a big deal to me, but they ignored that and they kept talking about fucking He-Man. What I'm getting at is that it is great that retro video games are more well known for better or for worse, but the 80s nostalgia that is attached to it isn't the only thing. I would like to see some other types of internet personalities, not just the 80s nostalgia crowd. I do not give a shit about Back to the Future, but I do like Pat and Ian though. The Game Chasers are not for everyone. They could be kind of, I don't want to use the word cringe, but they could be juvenile at times. Like, I tossed on the Game Chasers and I was like, I like the idea, but I hate the execution. I still watch them because it's hands down one of the best produced retro game hunting channels on the internet. And they've inspired me to do, you know, this while I was a lot younger. Oh man, but holy crap, they're still making dick and gay jokes in the year of our Lord 2019 plus 3 years. Variety gets a 2. Holy shit, there was not much to do. I showed up, I walked the hall for a bit, I went to the 8-Bit Eric panel, I stayed for the NES Punk panel, and I was like, alright, I want to stay for the Game Chasers panel because I wanted to see the movie. That was at 1 p.m. I had to kill about 4.5 hours. I walked the entire hall multiple times, visited the Nintendo Power Art exhibit, did the video game museum, watched some people play NBA Jam for a really nice looking trophy. I got hella footage pretty much is what I'm saying. I looked at my phone and it was 3 p.m. I did everything this convention had to offer, minus the panels, in 2 hours. And again, if you're not into these internet personalities, that's all you're going to be doing. So in total, I spent about 4 hours because of the 2 panels and the 2 hours walking around. But 2 hours walking around the convention floor isn't really that much, especially when I was just doing laps. So I went to go eat Jack in the Box, came back to the convention, and it was 4 p.m. I still had an hour to kill because the movie started at 5:30. I walked the convention again. I played Halo 2 for like about 45 minutes. Then it crashed. Then I sat down to watch the movie at 5 p.m. because I wanted to get a good seat. And then I waited 30 minutes. I just scrolled Twitter. Now, to be fair, this is an indie convention. There's definitely room to expand, and that is what I want to see. The last couple of years that this was being held, it was just getting bigger and bigger. Let's take example, the last convention that I attend to. It's not exactly apples and oranges because that's an anime convention, but there was so many different things to do. There was Artist Alley, autographs, kind of panels, Game Saru, cars, maid cafes, all these different things that can kill time. While I was doing something, not trying to kill time, I had a lot of fun. Looking at video games, trying to find something that I needed, or seeing something that had some sort of sentimental value to me, and just seeing rare games in general is really, really fun to me. But you can only go to the same booths so many times until you're just doing it less for the excitement and more just to get your steps in. Main hall gets a 3. It was fine. There was a variety of vendors. The 2 exhibits could have been a whole lot bigger, especially since there were some empty tables, which again, COVID is still mucking around. The console area could definitely have been a whole lot larger. I think having an Artist Alley would also kind of be a little sick. There was Retrobit, which is a phenomenal group. Please take all of my money. I tried out these controllers and these controllers feel so nice. I was so close to buying one. And this live stream service thing that is a little weird and not for me, not especially none of my channels will really utilize this. But I loved walking around, looking at all the games, talking to people, and seeing games that I did not know exist was well worth it. Also, shout out to the dude that was just trading games. That was fucking cool. I ran into him like I think 3 times and he was just trading games, just sealed games to like other like booths and stuff. That was really, really cool. Overall, this convention gets a 3 out of 5. Was the $35 price tag worth it? It pains me to say, but no, not really. It was really expensive to get in and there wasn't much to do outside of spending money. But that is why you go to these, especially for a convention like this. You're gonna spend your money. You're gonna find missing pieces in your collection. I still had fun, do not get me wrong. I would like to see this expand, and I am definitely adding this to my roster of conventions that I attend. Alright, so remember that a 3 out of 5 is not bad. I am very harsh with my reviews because I've been doing this convention shit forever. When Anime Expo is a 5 out of 5 and Anime Impulse is a 4 out of 5, you're gonna have to bring something extra to the table. Regardless, I had fun. Thank you, Jay from the Game Chasers. Thank you all for watching. Today's question for the people that attended: what did you buy? I was super close to buying a complete in-box Nintendo 64 for $200, but then I remembered My rent is due. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more anime convention reviews and retro game stuff, and I will see you all in the next one.